Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. After a few live crowds to stop back at the Apex, we got UFC Vegas 82 going down this Saturday. And, man, I feel like we are always having middleweight main events at the Apex. It seems like every time we're there, we're breaking down a middleweight fight. And here we are yet again. We got Brendan Allen taking on Paul Craig there at 185. Co-main event. Another one of the UFC's, rising prospects. Michael Morales taking on veteran Jake Matthews. We got a total of 14 fights to get into this week, man. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, let you recap 295, where majority of it was yourself, but over 9 units combined for the podcast, man. Looking to keep the ball rolling this week.
Yeah, absolutely big night for the podcast. We were on a lot of the same spots, just bet them a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. We'll take a look over at your card first. You nailed the co-main and the main event. You had Alex Pereira for a unit at minus 145. Mm-hmm. I guess, he covered that price tag. There's something about when he takes damage. I don't really like how he reacts to it.
I know.
Yeah, so sometimes it just looks bad, but I guess he covered that minus 145 price tag. Tom Aspinall over Sergey Pavlovich. I thought that was a great play. He was obviously the faster guy in there. And, I really thought after that first exchange that Pavlovich had on him that Tom was looking for a way out, but him fighting through that and tagging him, he proved himself. He proved a lot to me that night, just getting through that first exchange with Sergey. Biggest loss on the night was Mackenzie Dern versus Jessica Andrade. So that was another spot where it's like we both saw that the same way. It was Jessica Andrade's night as far as her win condition being a knockout. She did end up getting it, and Mackenzie couldn't get that takedown, and she was in trouble. Frivola versus Benoit Saint Denis. It's an underdog shot, but I think BSD is the real deal, man. Yeah. I really do. Then you also had a great number, minus 130 on Lupe Godinez over Tabitha Ritchie. She covered that. Even though it was a split decision, I thought that she clearly won at 30-27. I was blown away by that, but I don't know. I'm at least glad the judges got it right. 2 of the 3 judges got it right. She definitely won that. Jared Gordon minus 155. That was a spot that I understood the play, but I hate playing Jared Gordon at juice, and he covered his price tag for sure. Marco Madsen, I think it's time for him to hang him up.
Sharp decline,
yeah. Then you had another dog shot on Kyung Ho Kang over John Castaneda. Kang looked huge in there. I was wishing that I had played Kang whenever the fight started with just how big he looked in there, but he just couldn't put together. John Castaneda, even though he has weight issues, he is a decent fighter, can put together.
Yeah, best performance of his career. I thought really turned the corner. Looked good that fight.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We were both big on the Lopez scorecards, no action over Pat Sabatini. Mm-hmm. That was a big one for sure. And then both on this parlay that you had put together, the under 3.5 in the main event and the under 2.5 in the co-main event for only minus 137, absolute steal. Right. You profited plus 1.65 units. And then a quick peek over at my card. My 2 straight bets, they were both dog shots. I thought Alexandra Costa, he had it 1-1 going into the third.
Right.
I don't hate that for an underdog play, but that sucked the way it played out. Steve Erceg just holding them against the cage that third round sucked. Roosevelt Roberts at plus 525. That's what you get for playing a plus 525, but I did think that the line was a little wide. It wasn't. It wasn't at all. One of my biggest spots on the card was the fight not to start round 2 in the Sergey Pavlovich Tom Aspinall fight at minus 110. That was double their average fight time for money, man. I really like that play. Then we talked about the Lopez scorecards, no action. That was my actual biggest play on the card. Joshua Van versus Lupe Godinez. Van, I like him, man. I like him a lot. He's a little
volume was great. Body work, look good.
Yeah, I like his mindset. And then had plus money on that parlay. I like that. Andrade by TKO. Now we talked about I thought Mackenzie Dern was going to win this 75% of the time, but they were saying that Andrade winning by KO was only 16%, and I thought that there was a little bit of an edge there, so I sprinkled on it for a half a unit. She came out. I don't like seeing Mackenzie Dern get beat up like that, but I guess that night I didn't mind it. Van by submission at plus 500. He got 2 submission attempts off, and I guess I'm happy with that at a plus 500. But still, it was a long shot. And then your parlay that you had put together, I tailed that at for the unders in the co-main and main. And yeah, good night for me, plus 7.44 units, and a solid night for the podcast. Hopefully we can keep that going into this week. We start off the night in the flyweight division between Charles Johnson and Rafael Estevam. Charles Johnson, man, he's had a tough go of it with the wrestlers that he's faced. I think that he's probably going to be facing some takedowns here. You're getting a pretty decent price on Charles Johnson, where I feel like a lot of the times he's a little juiced or not being respected enough on his line. I do think that they're doing it again here, man. Like, they're kind of giving you a decent price for somebody who has all of the tools to win a fight, but just isn't really putting it together in the UFC. Rafael Estevam, he's yet to lose, so it's kind of hard to bet against him. For me, this is just a fight that I'm looking to gain a little bit more information on two guys that I want to see more out of in the UFC.
Yeah, originally in the week, it's kind of hard for me to lay off of Charles Johnson, honestly, man. I think as it goes closer to Saturday, though, it does become a pass for me because, like, when I look at it, Estevam's got a good ground game, but he doesn't have, like you said, the physical wrestling of a Mikhaev, of a Durden, and I also don't think he has the cardio to chain takedown attempts together like that. But at the end of the day, man, styles make fights, and I feel like Charles Johnson is going to be on his back at some time in this fight, and probably early on. I think he's a slow starter to begin with. I think his win condition's predicated on him coming back in 2 and 3 here with that volume in the boxing and that cardio. When you look at, who he's beaten, he's got like a split decision win over Zumagulov in the UFC and Jimmy Flick. That's really nothing to write home about. So, man, I'm gonna pick Charles Johnson. I do like the cardio. We've seen Estevam botch the weight cut, and I do like to bet on cardio. And I just kind of, you've talked about a couple times where these undefeated guys, when they
I was about to fill in after you quit that.
Take it on. I like Charles Johnson by decision.
Yeah, man. If you've never seen somebody lose in their career, they're usually pretty tough. And whenever they do take that first loss, it's usually a learning lesson. It's not where they get starched. It's something where they get outclassed a little bit and they see that they have some holes to fill. I do like the decision for Charles Johnson at the plus 250 range. Yeah, I think that's
the flyweights to begin with,
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that play. Moving on, Nikolas Mota versus Trey Odgen at 155. And honestly, man, Mota's been another person that I've been staring at, wanting to bet all week. I feel like it's kind of a low kickboxing affair on the feet, and Mota's going to be landing the much cleaner, harder shots. I think he's the faster, more athletic guy. And truth be told, I think he's just a better fighter than Trey Ogden. The elephant in the room with Nikolas Mota is he's been KO'd in 4 of his 5 losses, 6 losses, something like that. But when you look at Trey Ogden, he doesn't have a single knockout win on his professional record. So if you're gonna bet Nikolas Mota, this has to feel like the safest spot that you're ever gonna get. And I don't think that minus 130 is typically a bad line to fade Trey Ogden. I don't rate Trey Ogden that high, man. I think he's a little bit older, foot out the door. But then when you see Carlos Mota get clipped and put down, you can't act surprised. And so trying to be smart with my units. I want to bet Mota. The pick is Mota, but it's real hard for me to pull a trigger on it, man.
I certainly think it could be just a point fight kickboxing match. I think the finishing upside's on the Mota side, but I do think that there is some opportunity for Ogden to get on top, kill some time. And I'm a little worried about that. I think this is another fight where I'm going to lay off. I lean towards Ogden because I do think that he's going to put together a little bit prettier of a performance, where I think Mota would be better off trying to make this a little bit more of a scrap. So I'm on the Ogden side, but not with any conviction whatsoever. Moving down to the women's bantamweight division, Lucie Pudilova taking on Ailin Perez. This is Pudilova's second time in the UFC. She's I think that she's a better rounded fighter than Ailin Perez. I don't really like that Perez, to win this fight, she's going to need to land 5 takedowns, I think that on the feed, it's a whole lot closer than the line suggests. And Perez isn't the type of girl that I like to lay money or like to lay juice on. She's doesn't seem like her mindset's the type that I like to back as a female MMA fighter. So I think that the line's a little bit wide, although I have not found a spot on Pudilova yet. She's 14-8. It's a fight where I think I'm okay with laying off regardless of who wins. So Pudilova's the pick. Nah, I take that back. Perez is the pick, but I will not be playing that price tag. I do think the line is wide. So as far as value wise, I'm on Pudilova.
A lot of the same thoughts here. I'm gonna side with Perez. It's one like you've talked about. Let's just sit back, gather some information on these girls because last couple fights, man, Perez was fighting a 36-year-old Ashley Evans Smith coming off like a 3-year layoff. Like she looked like a female Habib out there, and you can't take anything from that. But at the same time, when I look at Pudilova, I'm quick to say if she's really that improved of a fighter. I don't take very much from beating Wu Yanan. And then, arguably, I do think she should have got her hand raised against Jocelyn Edwards. I thought she was up 2 rounds going into the third. But it's still like if you don't know how to beat Jocelyn Edwards at this time, I don't know. So for me, it's like I just really couldn't take a lot from these girls recently. I do think it could be a market overcorrection where we see Ailin Perez dominate as a good size favorite last time, and then here she is even more of a favorite. But I think this is Ailin Perez's best win on her record if she does get through Lucie Pudilova. So I don't know, man. Easy pass for me, but I do think the wrestling of Ailin Perez. I think the holes could still be there for Pudilova. We just haven't seen, since she's been back to the UFC, we just had no opportunity to see that. So I think Perez will land her takedowns here and win a close decision. Another fight, Lucas Alexander versus Jeka Saragih. We got a little bit of action on here. Lucas is a guy stepping in on short notice, but I do want to mention, he's supposed to fight David Onama back in UFC Sao Paulo. So technically short notice, but he didn't have to cut weight. Onama, scrapped early. He's in shape. You're going to enjoy a nice little size and reach advantage. Another little thing, it doesn't mean too much, but they were setting up Lucas Alexander in his home country of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Might like him a little bit here. When I watched the tape on him, I don't really know if Lucas should be a minus 500 because I think if this fight plays out on the feet, it's hard to cover 80% against Jeka if you're just going to strike because he's a pretty good striker himself, man. He's got a nice body kick. He holds the same kind of power in his hands. But if you're willing to grapple him, I think you can make it look very easy. I think he might even have some weight trouble making 145 for the first time. I was looking at some violence all week because originally this fight was going to kick off the card. So I was like, they love to kick it off with some violence. Bet Online was minus 240 for fight doesn't go the distance, and get a text from you earlier in the day here. So I know we got a big play on doesn't go the distance on this fight. I'm going to take Lucas Alexander to get the finish second or third round probably.
I think it's an easy spot, man. I feel like even though this is Jeka's first time cutting to 145, he's, it's been a long time coming. He's only 5'8" at 155. He didn't really look big ever. And this cut to 145 for Jeka to have never seen a judge's scorecard in 16 fights, and we're getting minus 190 on fight doesn't go the distance. Like, I think that's a beautiful number, not to mention Lucas is going to be way bigger. And Jeka, I like his fight style. He's got a puncher's chance. He's going to try and get the finish. He makes things wild. And I think that he's a good dance partner for Lucas Alexander to put on a show and kind of get his breakout fight in the UFC. Plus, as far as skill-wise, I think that Jeka's maybe one of the lowest level fighters on the roster. So, yeah, like I said, great spot for Lucas Alexander. I don't love the price tag, but the under being there when there's one side that's a minus 500 and the other side has never seen the judges' scorecards, like that's an easy play, man. That's a really easy play. So glad we're both on that for sure. Wow, the only one that I actually have a write-up for, so I'm going to move over to my notes for this one. Mick Parkin versus Caio Machado, an absolute pass for the majority of people on MMA Twitter, but I have managed to make 2 plays on this fight right here. Okay, so Caio, I think that he has excellent takedown defense. The way that he holds his hands, he can dig for underhooks really well. He is a little bit reckless on his feet with the way that he throws. He's ultimately just using that striking to close the distance, though, and then look for trips and takedowns where he can have a clear advantage if he does land in top position. When he is on the feet, he's got a solid left body kick, and he just looks to land that overhand left when he's closing that distance. The downside about Machado, and I am fully prepared for this, is he does shake his head a lot. He talks when he eats a good shot. There's lots of opportunities for someone who has good counter ability to exploit those lunging punches. But I do think that his southpaw stance is going to negate a lot of the chopping leg kicks that Mick Parkin relies on to establish that striking game of his. And for what it's worth, Machado, low-level heavyweight, and his striking didn't look great. But if you're able to put up 121 strikes over 15 minutes without any significant signs of gassing, that's a good sign, man. Like, round 1, he had 75 strikes. Round 2, 40 strikes. Round 3, 41 strikes. Like, those are pretty consistent numbers for a fucking heavyweight,
right?
Especially, that low level. Now, Mick Parkin, he trains at a TFT in Sunderland, England. His main training partners are the current interim heavyweight champ, Tom Aspinall, and the current KSW champ, Phil DeFries. He's got good training partners. I'll give him that. But he's got an absolute brick head. He doesn't get that off the center line. In the Contender Series fight with Neves, he comes in as a dog. He immediately eats a couple of clean shots, and Neves starts to hit this alley shuffle, takes Parkin down twice. Parkin finally manages to get to his feet and capitalizes on a risky spinning attack by Neves and gets the rear naked choke. So he's coming in as a dog against somebody who I didn't hold high, about the same level as Machado here. Then he gets that contract against a former middleweight in Jamal Pogues, again as a slight underdog, and managed to get that jab established, started hacking at the lead legs of Pogues, and that's not going to be an option for him against Machado here. Now, that was a good performance. I'll give it to him, but I think Parkin has a potential to be a solid heavyweight prospect. He's got the size and the technique with the training partners, but I'm just not convinced on him yet. I do not think that he's supposed to be this big of a favorite against somebody in Machado who, has proven to me that he has the volume. He can win at the UFC level. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. Most of his wins are by submission. And hell, as long as he's throwing big shots, I think Parkin doesn't move his head well. There is opportunity for a knockout, which nobody would see. So I'm on Machado. And then if he does, overextend himself or whatever, I think there are plenty of opportunities for Parkin to piece him up on the feet and knock him out. So I'm on the under in this fight as well. Sorry to take that long, but that was the only fight I had. So.
Yeah, you seem like you're on the island on Machado this week. I don't see a lot of love for him. Fight for me is just – I bet Mick Parkin at underdog odds last time, and I got him in London. I got him against Jamal Pogues, who showed up 30 pounds heavier than his previous fight. Looked like a slob. And now I got to lay minus 350. That alone makes me want to consider betting Caio Machado here. And you said it best in our text messages last week, or this week, last week. It's a low-level heavyweight, and it's probably going to play out closer than the odds. At the end of the day, it's low-level heavyweights are almost like females MMA. I think Parkin has a gas tank advantage, and I think he will wear on him in the clinch some. I think he's going to see a lot of putting Machado on the fence, some knees to the body, just kind of draining the gas tank. I think he's a better minute winner than Caio Machado. I think Machado's a little bit more reliant on a finish in this spot to win. I don't know, man. I'm definitely not going to advocate for anybody to bet Mick Parkin this week at minus 350. I couldn't get to a Caio Machado bet there with you. I hate that. I'm going to side with Parkin, but I really hope you hit that plus 350 dog or whatever you took a shot on.
Yeah.
This next one here, Denis Tiuliulin taking on Christian Leroy Duncan. Honestly, man, haven't done too much tape into this spot. Denis Tiuliulin is a guy that is pretty easily fadeable. I don't think his skill set is very good, but I think he's a tough dude. I think he's a dude that you really kind of got to put away. And I know Christian Leroy Duncan is a good kickboxer. I know he's experienced on the amateur circuit, experienced in Cage Warriors. I don't know. I don't want to say he's a pretty boy, but I think if it got tough in the cage, I think I favor Denis Tiuliulin there, just being honest with you. I don't know how much dog Christian Leroy Duncan has in him if the fight gets dirty. I couldn't lay this type of chalk on him, although he will be the pick, on a short note with Denis coming in on short notice. I do got to side with Christian Leroy Duncan. He's been to Apex before, so nothing really new to him. I think he probably just pieces him up for a pretty clear decision.
I'd like to say that he pieces him up for a decision, but the way that Tiuliulin's got out of there in the first round, his last two, I'm a little worried that this is just a setup spot for Duncan, Yeah, man. I think they did him. They tried to give him a litmus test with Armen Petrosyan in his debut. Well, not his debut, but his second fight in the UFC, and they kind of got a feel for how good he is. Now, Tiuliulin seems like a tune-up fight for him, so that they can get him back into the mix. If Tiuliulin was a little bit younger, if he had more tools to get the fight, make it a little bit more dirtier, get on the inside, maybe I could make a case for him, but. I'm sticking with Duncan here. I think he'll probably put him away round 1 or 2. Not a lot of conviction on it. Probably going to pass for me. Moving down to the bantamweight division, Chad Anheliger versus Jose Johnson. This is a fight I really didn't give much of a look towards. Anheliger coming in and losing to Alateng It's not the worst look, to be honest with you. Alateng's a tough dude. He's constant forward pressure. It's not the worst loss that I've seen, but he hasn't proven much to me, and I do want to get more of a feel before I bet for him or against him. As far as Jose Johnson, I think Damon Blackshear is underrated, and it sucks that he got a twister on him.
Yeah,
but I do think I think it's a spot where Jose Johnson is the side, but as the line's starting to continue to get further and further into like the minus 200 range, I don't love it when we haven't really seen him at a UFC level compete. So right now I'm laying off, but I do think that Jose Johnson's the side. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it because I think you have some action on it.
Yeah. I was able to snipe Jose Johnson at minus 176, minus 177 on Bet Online, I think a day or two ago. I know the guy is a mediocre fighter, 8 losses on the regional scene. He can't beat around the bush. You've just got twisted, regardless of if it was Blackshear. It's happened like twice in the UFC history, and you just got fucking twisted. I don't think he's ever a top 15 guy, but you're good. I do think this fight. I think the fight plays out on the feet, and I try not to overthink this one here. Jose Johnson's entering this fight with a 6-inch height advantage, 8 inches in reach. He's the far faster guy, far more athletic gifts, and he's got real knockout power for the bantamweight division as well. I think if anybody's willing to mix it up, has takedown, has submission upside, I lean that being Jose Johnson. I look at Chad, really, really small bantamweight. I feel like this guy would be a flyweight if he was not 37 years old. I feel like he's a style that's just going to be predicated on somehow coming from behind, but I do think he's going to eat big shots in here. I think Jose Johnson, honestly, is going to cover this minus 176 price tag. I know Chad's never been knocked out on the feet, but I do think he's going to get hurt. I think he's potential to get clubbed and subbed here. Try not to overthink it, man. I got a flyweight with massive height and reach advantages, much more physically superior athleticism, everything, and the fight's going to play out on the feet. Way younger. I like the minus 176 there, man. Moving on to a damn good fight, man. Jonathan Pearce versus Joanderson Brito at 145. And when the fight was first originally made, I mean, honestly, man, I was looking at betting Jonathan Pearce at minus 155, and now he's sitting at minus 130 and things. And I think I was best to just chase violence here. I took the under 2.5 at minus 175. Doesn't go the distance, minus 200, I think is a really good look. I think there's a lot of finishing upside for both guys here. When you look at Jonathan Pearce, he's got the skill set that's pretty easy to back. Like the pressure and pace this guy can put on, the way he breaks guys with it. He's just a guy who constantly works, man, and he fights for your money. And I do think he will significantly start to take over this fight in rounds 2 and 3. But damn, man, on the feet, he's not only in just pure striking is he a liability with his defense. Joe Anderson's a way faster guy, clear discrepancy in power. you see a guy like Christian Rodriguez threaten with a guillotine a couple times. That is the type of choke somebody is built like Brito can muscle on a sloppy takedown. I don't know, man. Also, I'd rather just, before I lay juice on him, I want to see how JSP performed coming off the knee injury and stuff too. So, no, I think maybe getting in live on Pearce is good. If you see that, you see him, the tide start to turn and that pace start to wear on Brito. But man, the finishing upside Brito has early on this fight is just as good. So, fuck, man, I'm gonna go with Jonathan Pearce. I like him. I'm going to go with Jonathan Pearce, but I'm pretty passionate about the under 2.5 here as well.
Yeah, I don't hate the under 2.5 look at all. I've thought about hedging this spot, but I've made a 2-unit play on Jonathan Pearce minus 125.
I like it.
So I think that he's the, you kind of nailed it. He's the better MMA fighter. He's just got to watch out for getting bonked early. I don't think that that's going to happen. Joanderson, Brito, he's every mid-level Brazilian that's ever been in the UFC. He's super explosive for a round or two, and then he kind of falls off and gets out-wrestled. And I think that that's exactly what's going to happen here. Jonathan Pearce doesn't quit. There'll probably be opportunities for finishes on the from Jonathan Pearce once Brito starts to gas. And I think as long as he can avoid that early shot, that we're getting minus 125 for the much better MMA fighter in my head. So, I think I'm okay with losing if he does get bonked. And if he doesn't, I think it'll be, looking back on it, a really great price tag for a much better MMA fighter. Moving up to the welterweight division, Uros Medic versus Myktybek Orolbai. Man, I don't know anything about the Orolbai guy. Just knowing that the odds opened up as Medic minus 150, and now he's I don't even know, like plus 150. Yeah. It seems like this is a lot of people really buying into the hype of this Orolbai guy who we haven't seen at a UFC level. He looked good on the LFA scene, but I don't know. Medic has some UFC wins. I think that he's looked better and better as he's been in the UFC over a few fights. And this is a fight like a lot of these on the card where I'm just going to get some information because I don't know anything about this Orolbai guy. And as far as the hype's concerned, he's the real deal. So I want to see.
Shit luck for Medic going from like the minus 250 favorite now to an underdog. Completely different style swap up too. He had Johnny Parsons, a guy who was going to sit there and bang with him, and now he's got a guy who's likely going to be trying to take him down. I do agree, Medic, man, looking better each time out. I think the move up to 170 was good for him. He was cutting a lot of weight to make 155. I do think Orolbai has the chance to exploit the ground game, though, and so I kind of do understand the love on him. But, yeah, I kind of want to sit back and gather some information, too. I think the next fight is a fight that we might actually be able to play Myktybek regardless. If he were to go out here and look amazing, I think he's going to be overpriced in a fight next, and we can look to fade him then. If he goes out here and loses, he loses on short notice and probably comes in at a price we can play him against somebody next. So I think I'm going to sit back, watch some tape, see how this guy performs in his debut, maybe look to play him going earlier. I'll side with Uros Medic, the guy on the full camp. That's a dangerous guy to not have repetitions in camp for. You're going to see a lot of nasty strikes being thrown at you. So, let's take Uros Medic here as the underdog on the full camp.
Not to mention, like, the only time we have seen him lose is to Jalen Turner, dude. Like, that's
good fighter.
Just being in there with Jalen Turner is the best, matches the best win of Orolbai's. So right. It's just crazy to know that Medic has now had back-to-back finishes in the second and third round in the UFC, and the odds just flipped like this. I don't know. I might talk myself into a Medic play by the end of the week.
They see that Kazakhstan flag, and it's
That's exactly
instantly to the favorite.
Exactly.
Moving down a couple weight classes, we got Amanda Ribas taking on Luana Pinheiro. This fight resembles the Nikolas Mota fight to me a whole lot. I feel like I'm confident on who the better martial artist here is. I truly feel like Ribas has her covered everywhere. I feel like you ask me who the better striker is, it's Ribas. Who's the better wrestler? It's Ribas. Who has the better gas tank? It's Ribas. But like Mata, man, she's just got the same glaring holes in her durability. And Luana's a girl that can crack, a girl that is dangerous earlier. And so, although favoring Ribas, I kind of had to look at different spots on the card and look at maybe a better way to play this fight. That's where I kind of came out with Luana finish only, kind of like the Diego Lopez fight last week. I think Luana is inside the distance or bust here because I don't think the skill set is going to win a decision here. I think she, again, her win condition is to bonk Amanda Ribas, and I'm getting that at plus money here. You know, I don't think she's as good of a striker as Marina Rodriguez. I don't think she's as physically as imposing as Macy Barber. But I think if she gets it done, I think it's inside the distance. And if you ask me if this fight goes to scorecards, who's going to win it? 95% of the time, I'm probably going to tell you it's Amanda Ribas. So I'm going to side with Amanda Ribas, but I really like that Luana Pinheiro finish only prop this week.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. I think I'm more leaning closer to the fight doesn't go the distance at plus 125. I think that this fight, there's a lot of finishing upside for Pinheiro, like you talked about. But then I also think that there's potential for Ribas to come in here and just absolutely show her there's levels to this game. She's just been in there with so much better competition, proven herself. And although she has shown some suspect chin issues, I do think that she's dangerous everywhere, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. So I do think that just the way that both these girls fight, there's going to be plenty of potential for the finish, and that being plus money is kind of how I'm looking at it. But yeah, for both reasons, for the reasons that you talked about, Pinheiro winning inside the distance, and then he was just potentially going in there and showing her that, you know, she's just at a different point in her career. So yeah, under in that fight, I'll take Ribas as the pick though. Moving up, we go to the bantamweight division, Payton Talbot versus Nick Aguirre. Man, I took a Nick Aguirre shot plus 550 for 1 unit. Payton Talbot, super young, has yet to be tested in the wrestling. I think that Nick's going to shoot. So we'll at least see it. I think we'll at least see him get it to the ground, test Talbot, and surely Talbot needs to be tested before deserving a minus 900. He's fucking 25 years old. So like, please prove me wrong. I think Nick's getting a lot of flack for the Dan Argueta fight. Dan Argueta is a
lifelong wrestler.
Yeah, he's a lifelong wrestler. Like it's a completely different style matchup. Wow. And it's tough for anybody to draw a lot from that fight for the Talbot fight. I think that this is much closer than the odds suggest, and I don't think that there's enough information for either, for Payton Talbot specifically to be a minus 900 against anybody right now at the UFC level. So yeah, give me plus 550 on Nick, bro. Like I think that I like that. I'm okay if he gets just dusted, because then, Talbot will prove something to me. But I think that as of right now, since he hasn't proven anything yet, gotta play this at this price tag.
You going dog hunting this week, aren't you?
I am.
You are. I don't think I'm gonna get to a Nick Aguirre bet, but I have bet on Payton Talbot in a way. But dude, minus 900, it's wild, dude. It's crazy. I see people calling this guy a future superstar, the future Sean O'Malley, and like, I get it, like his striking's nice, his pace is nice, the frame, the volume, it's there. But there's clear limitations in the grappling that's going to hold this guy back. And if they're not careful in the way they match him up, his stock is going to drop. And it just so happens to be that Nick Aguirre's got a pretty decent ground game, man. I was kind of, watching his fights back. He's a high school and a collegiate wrestler. And there's no way to other say it, man. He's gonna have the skill set that could cause Payton issues early in this fight, man. We're talking about a 25-year-old, a guy with only 6 professional fights, and
if Nick is 7-0 coming into this in his UFC debut and hadn't lost to Dan Argueta, this fight's lined differently.
Much differently. I think anybody betting Payton Talbot at this number is crazy because I think it gets way better live. But I have bet Payton Talbot round 2 plus 450, round 3 plus 800. I think he's going to survive the round 1 with Nick, and I do think the pressure and the cardio and pace is going to get to Nick down the stretch. That's how I do see the fight playing out more times than not. So I'm going to go with Payton Talbot to cash my second or third round prop. But dude, I love that you have a bet on Nick Gary. Like I really do. I honestly I hope you cash that. I hope you catch that. I really do, man. That's awesome. Balls of steel. Jordan Levitt versus Chase Hooper, man. Going with another dog here. Both of us got some action on Jordan Levitt. No way in hell Chase Hooper is 2-1 to this guy, man. We missed the plus 200. I'm happy with plus 185. I almost see this fight as a 50-50 fight. I just can't put more than one unit on a guy who twerks on live TV, His skill set is very limited, but he's the far more experienced guy. He's had to fly over to London and fight in like a co-main event against Paddy Pimblett. I mean, that takes some nerves and stuff. Now you're just in here in the apex against a young kid. I feel like the nerves are gone. He's a natural lightweight, trained at a good gym. I really do feel like in these grappling transitions, Jordan Levitt is a lot stronger and is going to find his way on top, even if it's just sitting in Chase's guard. And if there's no grappling involved, how the hell do you lay minus 200 on Chase Hooper? The guy has never won a striking fight, never looked good on the feet. My only concern is the gas tank of Jordan Levitt. It does kind of slow down in fights, but there's just no way you can tell me that Chase Hooper wins this fight at that clip, man. I don't know. I think it goes to decision. I think Jordan Levitt can find himself 6 or 7 minutes on top here. I think Jordan Levitt walks away with his hand raised by decision. I see that sitting at plus 420, which I think is crazy, crazy value. But I think we just not get greedy. Sit here with my Jordan Levitt bet, let it ride out, man.
Yeah. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. If you lose, you lose your money. If he wins, you got to see him twerking. It's
yes, see the fucking split.
I think you're right, man. Now, as far as if this is a stand-up fight, that's actually where I am worried. Chase Hooper, no striker by any stretch of the imagination, but if there was a fighter who he was going to win a striking contest against, probably Jordan Levitt, man. Jordan Levitt does 0 damage outside of little baby calf kicks. I don't love that. I'm really hoping that they do engage on the ground because I do think that Levitt's going to have a significant strength advantage. Hooper, kind of been the knock on him his whole entire UFC career is having, boy strength as opposed to man strength. It's like he hadn't really filled into his body. And even though he took like a year off or something and he came back and he looked, stronger, I think he still doesn't have that man strength yet. And he could be up against somebody in Jordan Levitt who could negate a lot of the submission attempts that he's usually able to pull off in his fights. So I'm happy that we're both on Levitt. Like I said, not really somebody I'm generally looking to back, but I think that this is a decent spot at the number that we got him at. Moving up to the welterweight division, Jake Matthews taking on Michael Morales. Michael Morales, I think he's legit, man. 15-0. Jake Matthews, he's been a UFC vet. I think he's going to give Morales a really tough test. But Morales proved a lot to me against him in the Max Griffin fight. I tried to fade him in the Max Griffin fight. Morales showed that, he's real deal. He can hang with these guys who have been in the UFC for quite a long time. And I think that his just sheer athleticism, his build, will wear over Matthews over 15 minutes. And I think that there is potential for a late finish by Morales, round 3, or him just covering over 15 minutes and winning a decision. I've actually, I do have a bet on this one. Morales round 3 decision plus 155. And I feel like that's an awesome way to get down to minus 300 here.
I like Michael Morales a whole lot, man, as well. I feel like this is UFC Sao Paulo all over again. It's the UFC trying to set up their young prospect here in the co-main event against household name who typically isn't the most notorious finisher. I know that didn't go too well for old what's his name in Sao Paulo, the brothers.
Bonfim.
Yeah, I know it didn't go well for him, but honestly, I think Michael Morales is twice the prospect to Gabriel and Bonfim, and I really like Michael Morales. Like you said, Matthews brings a well-rounded skill set into the fight, but it doesn't really like blow me out of the water anywhere. I don't think he's going to piece Michael Morales up on the feet. I don't think
where's he have the clear advantage, right?
I don't think he's going to ground him. I don't think he's got a big cardio edge. I feel like Morales covers him everywhere, man. The athleticism, the size. I feel like any striking exchange is going to be won by Michael Morales. The submission game of Michael Morales is nasty. Dude, I don't know. I might try to look at that bet with you here because I do really like Michael Morales. One thing about Bonfim was the guy had never been tested before, but this guy's been 15 minutes with Max Griffin. Adam Fugitt gave him a damn good fight before he finished Fugitt in round 3, a guy who was a vet himself. Yeah, man, I like Michael Morales to really walk away with his hand raised. And I do think more times than not it could be by decision. So I do really like that round 3. I do think
plus 155, man.
Yeah, I think that's a great line for you for a late finish plus decision. I might end up joining you there. And man, to our main event, got a bet on Jordan Levitt and fucking Paul Craig this week, man. Never thought that would be ever on my betting card. I told you earlier I saw someone online bring up a great point. Brendan Allen moves up to 205. What's the line here? I guarantee you Brendan Allen going up to 205 is not minus 400 against Paul Craig. And Paul Craig cutting to 185 does not hinder his performance that he should be that big of an underdog, in my opinion. And I look at his last 4 or 5 fights at light heavyweight. He was ranging from plus 165 to plus 200 to Johnny Walker, Volkan Ozdemir, Nikita Krylov, Jamal Hill. And he beat 2 of those guys. And here he is, minus 400 to a guy far less proven than them and Brendan Allen. Now, I don't want to say that I think Paul Craig wins this fight more times than Brendan Allen, but he definitely wins this fight more than 23% of the time or whatever we got there. With Brendan Allen, he's got a 10-2 UFC record, which looking back on that, I did not know he'd already had 12 UFC fights. Pretty damn impressive. Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland up when they took that short notice up a weight class, whatever, only 2 guys to beat him. He's evolving, man. His hands are improving. He trains at a great gym. He's always had that really good ground game. And the guy grinded on the regional scene with some tough resume there. So the foundation has kind of always been there for Brendan Allen. But his fight IQ, man, maybe his ego, he's going to grapple with Paul Craig, just like Nikita Krylov or something, man. It's like, don't let Paul Craig take you down. Do what Volkan Ozdemir did. Stop the fucking stupid guard pulls. Land your shots on the feet. If it's by decision or if you get him out of there, so be it. You win. Brendan Allen's just not that type of guy, man. I feel like he wants to beat guys where they're better. I don't know. I feel like the line's really, really wide. Paul Craig can sub anybody in the world. I'm not sure what you got, but I got plus 333 earlier today, and I'm more than happy to ride that out on a Paul Craig bet. So line's wide, most definitely, and hope we cash the dog ticket in the main event, man.
I meant to talk to you about it. The plus 350 still out there right now on Caesars.
God damn, that's literally the only one I think I didn't check.
Yeah. I've got Craig at plus 350 right now for 1 unit. I do think that, like you said, he has the ability to submit anybody, and you got to think that Brendan Allen knows not to go to the ground with him. But he, like Jimmy Crute, is got all the potential in the world, but not the fight IQ to fight up to that potential. Mm-hmm. It seems like he's constantly eating more damage than he needs to, and I bet nobody has said this on the breakdowns of this fight, but Paul Craig's high kick setup really isn't that bad, and Brendan Allen drops his hands, I think that there's a potential for Paul Craig to really land a clean head kick on Brendan Allen. That being said, if Allen does give him the fight on the ground, there's plenty of potential for Paul to find that sub over 25 minutes. He is never out, even if he is getting punished. And, if you want to take a plus 350 shot on Paul Craig, you can simply hedge by Allen TKO at plus money. In 5 of the 6 losses that Craig has, he's been TKO'd. He fucking, he doesn't have the greatest chin. And when he goes for these submissions, he leaves himself extremely exposed. So I feel like there's potential to just put another unit on Allen by TKO, and you're either going to profit 0.25 units or 2.5 units on this fight. That's minus 800 that it's not going to the distance. I don't know, dude. I feel like that's an excellent breakdown for this fight, dude. I think we've got it covered from every angle. Paul Craig's the pick for value side, but I think that there's opportunity to hedge out of this fight.
Yeah, man, we see a lot of these fights the same way. A lot of underdogs from us both. Honestly, going into the week, I did not see myself having as much action as I do on this fight card, but continuing to find some more spots that I like. I appreciate everybody watching here, breaking down all 14 fights. Just keep an eye on Twitter, always releasing our bets and stuff as soon as we play them. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Peace.